Trevor Philips isn't just a character. He's a full-blown psychological case study wrapped in pure chaos. On the surface, he might look like pure evil, but dig a little deeper, and you'll find a profoundly broken individual whose violence is more a symptom of deep-seated trauma than simple malevolence. His entire existence is a complicated mess of pain, survival, and a completely fractured understanding of human connection. Growing up in a horrifically abusive environment, Trevor never stood a chance at being a normal person. His childhood was a nightmare of domestic violence, emotional manipulation, and complete abandonment. His father was a violent alcoholic, and his mother was emotionally absent, a combination that creates the perfect storm for psychological destruction. Trevor didn't just develop mental health issues. He basically became a walking wound, lashing out at the world that had done nothing but hurt him from day one. He has a twisted survival mechanism developed from years of being the most vulnerable person in every room. His extreme unpredictability isn't just random madness. It's a calculated approach to never being caught off guard again. Every violent outburst, every seemingly random act of destruction, is actually a carefully constructed defense mechanism. He's not trying to be scary. He's trying to make sure nobody can ever hurt him the way he was hurt as a child. His relationship with Michael is particularly telling. Despite all the violence and instability, there's a genuine, deep bond of brotherhood that transcends typical friendship. Trevor might be completely unhinged, but he's also capable of an intense, almost pure form of loyalty. When Michael dies, Trevor's reaction isn't just anger. It's genuine, profound grief. This isn't the response of a purely evil person, but of someone capable of incredibly deep emotional connections, just expressed in the most damaged way possible. The drug business, the violence, the complete disregard for social norms. These aren't just criminal activities, but a way for Trevor to create a world where he has total control. In a universe that consistently betrayed and hurt him, Trevor creates a space where his unpredictability becomes his greatest strength. He's not following society's rules because society never followed any rules when it came to protecting him. His violence is a language, a way of communicating the pain he can't express in any other way. He's clearly dealing with multiple severe psychological conditions, potentially borderline personality disorder, complex PTSD, and potential schizophrenic tendencies. But he's not a villain in the traditional sense. He's a survivor, someone who's developed the most extreme coping mechanisms possible to deal with a lifetime of trauma. His actions are horrific, but they come from a place of profound psychological damage. He's not a sociopath who can't feel. He's someone who feels so intensely that he's had to build massive psychological walls to survive. His violence is a shield, his unpredictability a survival technique. Seems more of broken. Next. Niko Bellic isn't your typical video game protagonist. He's a walking wound, a survivor dragged through the absolute worst humanity has to offer. His story isn't about pure evil, but about a person desperately trying to escape a cycle of violence that's been crushing him since childhood. Coming from war-torn Eastern Europe, specifically Serbia, Niko's entire existence is a testament to how trauma can reshape a human being's entire moral landscape. The war in the Balkans wasn't just a backdrop to Niko's life. It was a fundamental transformation engine. As a young soldier, Niko experienced horrors that most people couldn't comprehend. He witnessed friends dying, was forced to commit atrocities, and discovered the darkest potential of human nature firsthand. This wasn't just violence. This was a systematic destruction of innocence that left him fundamentally changed. Every violent act in Liberty City is less about enjoyment and more about survival, a learned behavior from years of literal life-or-death situations. Despite his violent actions, he's constantly wrestling with guilt, searching for redemption, and hoping to break free from the cycle of violence that defined his past. His relationship with his cousin Roman isn't just familial, it's a lifeline, a connection to something resembling normalcy that he's desperately trying to preserve. He commits terrible acts, but always with a sense of internal conflict that pure evil characters never experience. The most heartbreaking aspect of Niko's character is how the American dream becomes his ultimate nightmare. He arrives in Liberty City hoping for a fresh start, believing he can escape his past, only to find that the systems of violence and corruption are universal. His criminal activities aren't driven by a love of destruction, but by a desperate need to survive and protect the few people he cares about. Every mission, every violent act is filtered through a lens of survival and protection, not pure malevolence. His backstory reveals a deeply traumatic history that explains, though doesn't excuse, his actions. The betrayal during the war, where many of his fellow soldiers were killed and he discovered a close friend's potential involvement, left permanent psychological scars. Niko isn't seeking revenge out of pure hatred, but out of a complex mixture of pain, loyalty, and a desperate need to understand why he survived when so many others didn't. This makes him a tragic figure more than a villain. The game brilliantly portrays Niko as someone constantly at war with himself. He wants peace, but violence is the only language he truly knows. His dialogue, his internal monologues, constantly reveal a person who is deeply aware of his own damaged nature. He doesn't glorify his actions. He's painfully conscious of the moral compromises he's making. This self-awareness is the key difference between Niko and a purely evil character. Love and connection are crucial to understanding Niko. Despite his violent profession, he shows genuine care for Roman, for potential romantic interests, and for the few friends he makes in Liberty City. He's capable of profound loyalty and genuine emotional connection, traits that are completely absent in truly evil characters. His violence is a tool, not a pleasure, which fundamentally separates him from pure villains. Niko Bellic isn't pure evil. He's broken, complex, and ultimately human, a character who shows us how easily someone can be pushed into darkness by circumstances beyond their control. He's not looking to be a hero, just trying to survive in a world that's given him no other options. Next, Devin Weston. Devin Weston isn't just a villain. He's basically the walking, talking representation of everything wrong with capitalism. This guy doesn't just want money. He wants total control, and he doesn't care who gets destroyed in the process. Imagine the most toxic billionaire you can think of, then crank that up to 11. That's Devin Weston in a nutshell. What makes Devin truly evil is how he operates completely above the law. He's not some street-level criminal. He's a billionaire who uses his wealth and connections as a weapon. For him, human beings are nothing more than disposable assets. People aren't humans to Devin. They're just opportunities to make more money or obstacles to be eliminated. He's got that classic billionaire mindset where everything and everyone has a price tag. His interactions with the protagonists in Grand Theft Auto V reveal just how deeply messed up he is. Devin doesn't just want to make money. He wants to destroy people for his own amusement. He's the kind of guy who would ruin someone's entire life just to prove he can. Whether it's manipulating Michael, threatening Franklin, or treating everyone around him like garbage, Devin represents that pure, unfiltered corporate evil that doesn't even try to hide its true nature. The truly terrifying thing about Devin is how realistic he is. He's not some cartoon villain. He's basically a compressed version of every horrible CEO and billionaire you've ever heard about. His entire existence is about accumulation. More money, more power, more control. He doesn't have any actual goals beyond making himself richer and more powerful. Compassion isn't even in his vocabulary. He's not just an individual bad guy. He's a symptom of a broken system that allows people with money to basically do whatever they want. His wealth gives him a get-out-of-jail-free card for basically any crime. Murder, manipulation, destruction, nothing is off the table if it means making another dollar. Devin probably sees himself as the good guy. In his mind, he's not evil. He's just successful. Every terrible action is justified by his bottom line. He's that stereotype of the billionaire who thinks money absolves him of any moral responsibility. Humans are just resources to be used and discarded. Now Michael. Michael deSanta isn't just a character. He's a total psychological hurricane. On the surface, he looks like your typical rich, retired criminal, but underneath, there's a complete emotional train wreck just waiting to explode. He's simultaneously the villain of his own story, and the most sympathetic mess you'll ever meet. His backstory is basically a textbook example of how a person can get completely screwed up by life. Growing up poor, Michael saw crime as his ticket out, but that ticket came with some seriously hefty emotional baggage. He didn't just become a criminal. He became a performance of what he thought a successful criminal should be. His entire identity is built on this weird mix of self-hatred and extreme narcissism. The really fascinating thing about Michael is how his selfishness is actually a defense mechanism. His ego isn't just about being arrogant. It's about protecting himself from the absolute disaster of his personal life. He treats his family like accessories, not actual people. But that's because he has no idea how to actually be vulnerable. Every toxic behavior is just a way of avoiding dealing with his own massive emotional wounds. His relationship with his family is basically a masterclass in dysfunction. Michael loves his wife and kids, but he has no clue how to actually show that love. He's more comfortable pulling off heists and living in his movie-inspired fantasy world than being a real husband or father. His entire existence is about creating this persona, the cool, retired criminal who's got it all figured out, when in reality he's falling apart at the seams. The therapy sessions in the game are basically a window into Michael's soul. Here's a guy who knows he's messed up but has no real tools to fix himself. His violence, his ego, his complete inability to maintain healthy relationships. These aren't just character flaws. They're survival mechanisms developed from years of living on the edge, never knowing when the next betrayal might come. What makes Michael truly complex is how he's constantly at war with himself. He wants to be a good person, but he doesn't know how. He loves his family, but he keeps pushing them away. He wants to be done with crime, but it's the only language he truly understands. Every attempt at redemption is sabotaged by his own inability to change. Steve Haynes isn't just a bad guy. He's basically the human embodiment of everything wrong with government agencies. This dude makes Agent Ross look like a Boy Scout. He's not just corrupt. He's corrupted to the point where the word ethics is basically a foreign language to him. Imagine the worst possible government agent, then multiply that by about 1,000. He's not just manipulating people. He's treating human lives like disposable game pieces. Every interaction is about power, control, and how many people he can throw under the bus to make himself look good. For Haynes, human beings aren't even people. They're just tools to be used and discarded without a second thought. Haynes doesn't just give orders. He enjoys breaking people. He's the kind of government agent who gets off on making people feel completely powerless. Every mission, every interaction is designed to prove how much control he has over everyone around him. It's not about doing actual government work. It's about satisfying his own twisted power fantasy. He's basically a compressed version of every corrupt government official who's ever abused their power. His entire existence is about maintaining his position, covering his tracks, and destroying anyone who might expose him. Compassion isn't just absent. It's something he's actively allergic to. He's not conflicted. He's not broken. He's not struggling with moral choices. He's pure, unfiltered evil wrapped in a government badge. Every single thing he does is about maintaining his own power and protecting his own interests. Humans are just collateral damage in his personal game of survival. His interactions with the protagonists reveal just how little he cares about actual justice. He's not trying to solve crimes or protect people. He's trying to manipulate situations to benefit himself. Whether it's blackmailing Trevor, using Michael, or threatening Franklin, Haynes represents that pure government corruption that sees people as nothing more than resources to be exploited. And we are done. Let me know in the comments what you think of my analysis. Subscribe to the channel for sure, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.